welcome to the Fishing Podcast, the podcast where we talk about all things fishing, gear, tactics, venues, and of course, the fish we catch. I'm Liam Hall.
And I'm Matt Jones.
We're back.
We're back, episode 6.
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
That was a quick one.
And we're wrapped.
Today we're going to discuss, well, first we're going to talk about how we are, but we're going to go into our trip to Norton Disney, aren't we? We're going to sort of talk that through properly.
Yeah, it's been a few weeks since we've sat back in the hot seat.
Yeah,
so
I've had some time off, been on a holiday.
Been a busy boy. So yeah, we've got a lot to catch up about. Yeah.
Disney, all sorts of things. But first, how are you?
I'm good. I've said to myself, I'm going to stop saying
You're busy.
I'm busy because everyone's busy. And
Everyone's
it then just
busy.
becomes a competition of who's busier.
Mm-hmm. You've got the biggest busy.
So yeah, I'm well. I'm feeling motivated. I'm feeling productive. I'm feeling, pretty good at the moment. How are you?
I'm well. Busy. Clearly
Of
busier than
course.
you are because...
Yeah,
Good. Have just classic been busy, but it's been all kind of good stuff to be busy with. I think it's I think there's some merit in being busy. However, I'm back off 3 weeks. I was in my trip to Wales, and then our trip to Norton Disney, and then just been back at work. So
you've had some hollybobs as well.
had some hollybobs.
You love
Brother,
that.
I hate to say that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't
hate
feel
what's
nice, does it? I said it and went, nah, I don't like that.
No.
I'm not saying
I've had some
hollybobs.
time off, but also managed to get quite a bit of fishing in recently. We've really sort of stepped up a bit, haven't we, in terms of how much we're getting out, which is probably a byproduct of doing this as well. So that's been nice.
100%. And I think as well we've had I guess behind the scenes, your brother as well has had a change of scenario, which has meant that he can now come fishing more. So
Which has probably given us a bit of energy to get more fishing.
We've got more going. He's certainly got the energy for it, so it's transferring to us.
Yeah, which is good. And on that note, how has your fishing been?
Yeah, it's been good. We've had a few sessions recently, some longer, some shorter, some really short, but we're getting out on the bank, which is the main thing. We're putting the time in. And what more could you ask for? How's your fishing been? I mean, I know how your fishing's been because you've been fishing with me.
Yeah, it's been good actually. We've had quite a few sessions, including a trip to Norton Disney, which we're going to discuss obviously in a minute. But apart from that, we've had quite a few sessions down at our local. We tried fishing another couple of lakes. I had a rather successful session. If I was a bream fisherman, went out and had 7 bream, 6 bream, and a carp as well. So only one.
Call him a breamsman.
Counted. Only one of those fish made the bankside. The rest were me laying down on my belly and unhooking them in the water because I will not be touching them slimy bream. But it's nice to what was nice about that is I'd recently tied loads of new rigs before the Norton Disney, and I'd shortened the boom link. So it was actually quite nice to see them working and being effective.
Yep.
That gave me a bit of confidence.
How long did you go on your boom rig?
Between 4.5 and 5 inches.
Oh, okay.
Some as little as maybe 4.25.
Yeah.
But anywhere around that. I wanted to go quite short because for the most part, especially at our local, we're boating things out. So I'm not as worried about, how it's presenting, and it's quite silty or quite clear for the most part. So not really worrying too much. But with the naked heli, it's just something I'm trying to mix up at the minute. It's going a bit more of an aggressive, shorter hook link. And I think, hopefully, it sort of seemed to have worked a little bit. So, but yes, the fishing's been well. So
good. One of those sessions, as you alluded to, was Norton Disney.
The Norton Disney. We've been wanting to get down there for a while now, haven't we? So
yeah, and we've been toying with it for, maybe a good couple of months, but we was just trying to find the right time to do it. Taking holiday to go and do it because we didn't just want to do like a weekend where it was going to be so busy. So yeah, we put some time aside. We booked the week off. We did 4 days down there in total. I think it's safe to say it was an experience.
It was. I think overall, definitely a really positive experience, and would recommend anyone to go who's thinking about going to Norton Disney. But I think a good place to if we're going to do a bit of a session debrief, I think is what would be valuable to do here, to talk about the session, but also so it's not just a story time with us. I think what we'll do is we'll drop in through the conversation any useful tips or tricks that we found sort of really help make the session. So starting with number one, and I guess just getting there in the beginning of the session, was just arriving early. We spoke to each other the day before about what time we should get up and leave. And it was one of those conversations where we both knew what the answer was, but neither of us were that happy about it, because what that entailed was getting up at 4 a.m.
Yeah. So yeah, we got up at 4, and that's because we wanted to be through the gate by like 7, half 7. And yeah, obviously we're based down south, so we're about 3.5 hours away, obviously with the complimentary stop off at Birchanger.
We got to Birchanger so early, we had to wait for them to open, didn't we?
So yeah, we got there just prior to 6, so it wasn't open yet. So yeah, we had to hang about for a bit to get our coffees. But yeah, like we knew we had to do it, but at the same point, it didn't feel nice. I don't actually remember like the first half of the journey. Like I sat in silence.
Well, I rang
half the journey,
and I said like, we did a little halfway catch up, check in. How's it going? And you were like, yeah, I've just been sat in silence for the past hour and a half. And I was like, what are you doing? To be fair, I sat in silence for all of 45 minutes because I was just completely zoned out. Because equally as well, we were up. I only had about an hour and a half, 2 hours worth of sleep because we were up till quite late, getting everything sorted, getting packed, probably playing games or something like that as well.
Yeah.
So I had very little sleep, but it was under the idea that we knew we'd be getting some sleep. Like we'd be able to, once you're there, you can sleep, can't you? When you during the day,
you're chilling once you're on the bank.
Whatever. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, we wanted to get there nice and early for doors, which we arrived. And to be fair, there was no queue initially upon arrival. However, that quickly changed because we rang the bailiff and he wasn't in the shop, was he? No. So he sort of said like, I'm on my way round, like just driving around in the truck. And as he pulled up, another person came in through the gate, followed by another. And quite quickly, there was a queue of 5-6 cars behind us.
Yeah, and for context, this was Tuesday morning after a bank holiday. So traditional, I guess, routine of people, you'd like to think, well, people are probably taking, over a bank holiday weekend, taking the Friday off. They've obviously got the Monday off. They're having an extended weekend. They might go and do 4 days somewhere. And then they'll leave Monday evening / Tuesday morning. But it just didn't seem that way. Like on Tuesday morning, there still seemed to be people arriving behind us. Like people were taking time off to go there. And it felt like, calling it a holiday destination is almost does it a disjustice because it's such a lovely place.
That's why people holiday there, though.
Yeah, true.
It's a destination venue.
Yeah.
That's how I best describe it.
Yeah, so that's a good way of putting it.
People are going to take longer. If someone's going to make the journey to go there and get on a swim, they are going to be there for a prolonged, extended period of time, unless they're local. But even then, like the angler and his son, Chris and Finn, who are next door to us, they were local, but they were there for 3-4 days, and a lot of people were local who were there for a longer period of time. And especially with that bank holiday, I think people were utilising that to increase their session with less days of work as well. But we got there nice and early. Luckily, we didn't have a queue in front of us because that was the other thing. Something you got to consider, and some prep we did prior was looking at the Facebook. It was actually Matt who'd picked up on it. He'd seen on the Norton Disney Facebook, they post regularly closed times for different lakes. For a bit of context, I tried to do a bit of asking around when we were there. Effectively, what certain, whether it's brands or businesses or groups of people can do is if there's enough people and people are willing to pay enough money, you can book out lakes regardless of what lake that is, as long as you can do it and pay for it, you can do it. So they closed Turner's Lake from, I think it was like the Friday or the Saturday previously to the Tuesday. They were closing Pettit's and Billy's on the Thursday. So there was a real crossover period where we were concerned that if we didn't get on really Hodgetts or Stocks or something like that,
those two,
we would basically have to be moving between the two times. So that meant there were less swims available on the complex as well. So.
And I think the thing with like booking the lakes is they don't advertise it like across everything, but effectively when you look on their website, you can book Edwards, and I think they've got a couple of other ones that aren't on the main.
They're
Because they've got
specifically
Norton Disney too, haven't they?
for lake exclusives.
Yeah, like you've got those, that you can book, but the rest of them, like Billy's, Turner's, so on and so forth, they don't advertise that you can book them out, but you clearly can. Like, because ultimately there was a couple of people, that we spoke to. They were like, yeah, it's a social for a company, or it's this, or it's that. And even when we left, I think I mentioned to you as well, there was someone that I was speaking to on Instagram who's he's in the army, but he had a massive army social on. What's the big on Billy's? Had a massive army social on Billy's, and there was just all the swims were booked out, and they did 4 days on there. So, but yeah, as you said, they put regular updates on their Facebook of the lake closures and that kind of stuff. And obviously the other thing as well is it's not just kind of lake bookings for companies or socials or whatever. They also do a lot of filming there, and you get the Corder boys there a lot, kind of doing things. So they'll close swims or they'll close lakes specifically for filming sessions. So you've got to keep an eye on their Facebook, but their Facebook's the best place to. Their websites don't get updated with that. It's only their Facebook.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I think, super valuable. Check the Facebook before you go if you're going to write. To be fair, check the Facebook of any venue before you turn up to really just make sure, one, it's still in operation. Like sometimes the lake's closed and that's not unheard of, and you'll see.
We had that once.
Yeah, we had that once where we were.
We went to a lake that was like, it looks really good. And then when we turned up, all of the gates were shut down. There was no one to call, no nothing. It was just steel gates, and that was it. And we're like, oh.
Brilliant.
Well, that's that then.
Yeah. So check the Facebook. Something we clearly didn't then. For closures, and that made it difficult that there were less swims. Also, there were people thinking about the fact that these lakes are going to close, so they were thinking in advance where they're going to go. That meant the lakes that weren't closing were going to be busier.
Yeah.
So we turned up, and if you've not been to Norton Disney, what you do is when you see the bailiff, they'll give you a sticker. They write the time and date that you turned up, and effectively you can put that in your bucket. And you can go off into the complex to find your swim and your lake. The idea is that you can see what's free, if you can see any fish, get an idea of what sort of water you want to fish. And then you've got a sign on the back of the swim with a little hook on it. You can hook your bucket on that or put it in the swim as Matt did. And then you can walk back to the bailiff and you can say, right, I'm going to be on Turner's, Hodgetts, Pettit's, whatever lake it is in this swim. And I plan to be here for X amount of days. And then that is yours. That's all you need to do.
Yeah, it's quite a good method, to be honest. Like, we got really lucky when we turned up there, because we went for a bit of a drive around, but we had half a walk around Hodgetts and found a double swim, and which we weren't expecting to get, and we were just like, we didn't know if it was a good swim, a bad swim, so we were just like, let's commit, let's just do it, and we were in. It was 2 and 3, wasn't it? I was about to say 1 and 2. It's 2 and 3 on Hodgetts. So it was on the deeper side of the lake, but ultimately it was the first time we were fishing it. Ultimately we were doing 4 days, so we were like, bit of a social. Like we wanted to try and strike that balance if we could. Yeah,
it's also worth noting that when you arrive, with the complex being so big and having so many lakes and so many swims, they don't always have a really up-to-date lay of the land as to where the swims were. They keep on top of it to an extent, but not really in the weeds. So don't necessarily expect when you turn up them to give you a list of the swims that are available that day on which lakes. It is up to you to go out and actually sort of try and find the swim you want to fish.
Yeah, but I think it kind of leads us onto kind of a nice point, which we've made previously, is like if you turn up with no expectations on what lake or what swim you're going to fish, you are going to have like a better time overall. But at the same point, what you've got to strike a balance on is the complex is massive. So if you go there with literally no clue or not even a little preference, then you could just be chasing your tail around the entire complex for an hour and a half until you eventually find a swim. And therefore, someone's already jumped into one that you probably would have gone in. So it's kind of a fine balance, really, that there's quite a high turnover of people that kind of come in and out. So you've kind of got to act quickly, but at the same point, be flexible, because otherwise you will just be disappointed, because, you never know what lake you're going to be on or what swim you're going to be in.
Yeah, I think do your research. I hammer on about it all the time, but check YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, we've just released a video on Norton Disney, so feel free to check that out on Hodgetts. But check YouTube. I spent so much time on the website. It's not entirely accurate, but gives you a real feel of all the different lakes. Go on the website, read all the information about every single lake, kind of really go in with it. And we went in with an idea of like, we wanted to either be on Hodgetts, Turners, or maybe Billy's, or potentially Pettit's. We kind of had a ranked order, didn't we? Like, this was number 1, this was number 2, 3, 4. We kind of ranked them from 1 to 6.
Yeah.
So we knew roughly where we were going to ideally want to be.
Yeah.
But as Matt said, going with no expectations, because it does get really busy, and you might not be next to the person you want to fish with. You might not get on the lake you want to fish. You might have to move. So the more open-minded you are, if you go in thinking, I want to be on Turners on Swim 10 because that's where they film the underwater, you're most likely going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, it's very easy to go, oh, I want to be on Turners or Pettit's or whatever, because they've got the bigger fish in it. But then equally, if you're doing a shorter session and you just want to, kind of bank one, then you might want to choose one of the higher stock lakes as your top priority, and then you work backwards from that. So I guess it's just don't get drawn in too much by individual lakes. Like, have a bit of a priority list order so that if you've got to switch, you can switch and you know what the plan is. You can react quite quickly with it because it's a busy place. But overall, what would you say your kind of first impressions of the complex was when we first turned up?
First impressions are impressive. It's clearly, somewhere that has been dedicated to carp fishing. You get a real feel of, this is impressive. However, I think it strikes a nice balance because it's not so commercial. There are golf carts and buggies and gators driving people around, and there's not a real massive calf on site, and it's not.
I like that manual bit of it. Like, they still say barry your stuff round.
Yeah.
Like, that's nice.
There's still a feel of it not being super commercial, and it's also it feels a bit rural to an extent, which is quite nice. It's not incredibly, gravel roads or tarmacs or anything like that. It's all dusty roads and things like that, which might change over time, but at least at the moment it feels quite nice. And especially where we were on Hodgetts, it was really quite out the way, and it actually felt a little bit secluded, which was quite nice. But initial sort of thoughts on the complex was exciting, I think. But very much, let's sort of see what it has to offer.
I was quite nervous when we turned up because I was a little bit like, where are we going to go? What are we going to do?
We felt
like, what lakes are we going to be on? How are we going to need to fish it? There was so many unknowns that it was, and to be fair, like, that's why we do it, because ultimately it's fun working all of that stuff out and finding your spot and then eventually catching on. But it's like when you first turn up to a place like that, you don't really know what you're going to walk into. Like, we've been to so many commercial places in the past where we've had bad experiences. You walk straight up to the bailiff's office and are just greeted with a grumpy old man that clearly isn't there because they fish, that they're there just for the money. And like, this place was quite the opposite. Like, they were super helpful. The what's his name, Ewan? Was it Ewan?
Yeah.
Ewan in the office. Like, he was like just full of info, happy to hand it over, just trying to help out where he could. Equally a fisherman, so gets the process, he wants people to catch at the same point. So yeah, it was a good kind of first experience, I think.
Yeah, and also as well, the shop had enough bait and pellets for the most part. There is a shop on site. In fact, coming to you quickly now with Liam's top tips for going to Norton Disney Embryo: take a tin opener. Or take a steak with a mallet, because that's how I got into the tin of corn really effectively, actually.
Yeah.
We should have filmed that. That would have been a really good kind of thing to cut in.
Yeah, I don't think we did film it.
You need corn for the most part. If you plan on fishing with corn, they have these 1.5 kilo, is it?
Yeah,
I think,
like
or even maybe 1.8 kilo buckets of corn. But you need a tin opener. They don't have them on site, so get a cheap one. Bring one from your drawer at home. Or just something to get into it, because they should be sort of left trying to MacGyver your way into a giant can of sweet corn, like we were.
Yeah, but no, they're pretty stocked up with stuff. So if you're missing bits, like, obviously it's all quarter stuff, but yeah, they've got a lot of good stuff on site. So yeah, I guess kind of getting into the actual kind of fishing stuff, we got set up on day one. We had a long and hard day just trying to work out what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, where we were fishing, the spots we were fishing. We obviously had some local knowledge, and yeah, we must have spent a good couple of hours just letting about trying to find where we were going to put the rigs. And
we spent a bit of time. We've definitely covered it in different episodes, and we will continue to cover it every time we sort of talk about setting up a new lake. But initially we just spent some time building up a picture of the landscape of what we've got in front of us, trying to learn and confirm how deep it is, you know, where the bowls are, if there's hard spots, you know, realistically what is in front of us the whole time. Once we had a pretty good understanding of what was out there, it was a case of getting the rods out. We knew for the most part what we were going to use. We wanted to use heli setups, which was, I think for the most part, we had our baits in mind. We kind of put different baits, I did at least anyway, put different baits on different hooks. And for the first port of call, we were all baits on the bottom on the deck. And we were fishing in some pretty deep water. So really it was trying to find some shallower sections, hence the use of the marker float to try and, I guess, do some depth testing to try and find out what was out there. And I mean, it didn't last long until we were sort of trying to figure out how to get zigs out, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, it didn't take us long to realise that, you know, kind of the depths we were working at were pretty
well, it was
larger than we thought.
Yeah. Well, there was some pushback because neither of us have a history of being very confident in using zigs, and I think
we just never used them ever.
There was this dawning reality that we would have to try to figure out how to use a zig and to commit a rod to a zig. And look, not that zigs don't work. It's just we were fishing, well, for a while, between 14 and 17, 18 wraps, and trying to get a zig out that distance. I mean, it's definitely doable, but you're prone to tangles. There was a bit of weed in there, nothing crazy. So again, dealing with that and zigs. But also it was just something we didn't really have much experience in.
No, and I think as well, you know, there was a couple of times that we'd gone fishing before where we toyed with zigs.
I've definitely tried zigs before.
Yeah, and we've had them out to no avail really. But I think this occasion, I think the depth dead in front of us at about 16 wraps was about 24 foot. So peak of summer, you're not catching 24 foot's worth of water. And the fish were showing, so we could see them out there about that distance. It was just a question of trying to get a rig closer to them.
Yeah. Also, other people were having success on zigs, which was just even more highlighting the fact that we need to use them.
Yeah, I think obviously that came from, you know, the conversation with Chris to our right. You know, kind of he
also the bailiff as well.
Yeah, the bailiff has said zigs will do well in those swims. Chris to our right had you know, kind of a few on zigs that day. So yeah, it was a telltale sign we had to get on them. It didn't take us very long. But, you know, kind of that first 24 hours and certainly putting a zig out for the first time and being like, I'm committing.
Going to leave it there, yeah.
That was like, I certainly wasn't that confident. But we, I think when we first properly switched over, I decided to try a zig with a yellow boilie. It was a small boilie, but I put one of them out on an adjustable zig, and it was maybe like a 1.5 foot, 2 foot on top of the adjustable. And that I remember Chris was in our swim and we were chatting to him at the time. And then I literally had like a did, went tight. And then it pulled maybe a few clicks of line and then dipped back down again. And then it went back up. And then when I picked it up, there was nothing on it. So that moment gave me more confidence. And I was like, okay, something's going on. Now, could have been a liner. Could have been a bream. I don't know. But just knowing that something's around it, like, gave me a bit more confidence to go, okay, I could probably leave this out now. And
yeah, and the night before, so we went to sleep that night because there was a bit of a mental battle as well because we were on a lake, Hodgetts, which is supposed to be somewhat of a runs water to an extent.
Yeah.
And there were people around us catching, and we weren't. And I definitely had this feeling of we're in a swim with a big, deep bowl. We're in the deepest section, and I kind of felt a bit. We almost sort of spoke about moving because we were thinking, are we in the wrong swim? You know, are we really going to catch here? Other people getting 1 out, 2 out every now and then. Yeah. Not loads, but there was definitely action on the lake.
Yeah.
So I then went onto Facebook, went onto YouTube, and I just basically typed in swims 2 and 3 Hodgetts and just did every keyword search I could think of just to try and find as much information about the swim as possible.
Yeah.
And that's where I got 14.5 wraps. And I think it was 10 foot under the surface or 8 foot under the surface at that sort of idea. And then also a bit more confidence in the fact that I had a rod about 6 wraps out on a hard spot on the ground, on the deck, and got a bit of confidence because people were saying they'd been catching from around 6 reps out on a hard spot. So I had some confidence to leave that there, which effectively did pay off in the future.
Yeah.
But that was where the information came from initially. Then it was just a case of trying to tweak that and work that to our advantage.
Yeah, it was I mean, I didn't necessarily have any hard spots down in front of me. Like, it was all soft, but I ended up having one at 6 reps, but then the other two further out, kind of one on the bottom at a bit further distance that I think was in about 15 foot's worth of water, which is still quite deep for the summer. And then, then the zig. But yeah, like it was, I mean, just our style of fishing up until this point, kind of we've like predominantly fished small, kind of ponds,
specimen
big,
lakes, yeah,
specimen kind of big fish ponds basically. We're not talking lakes, really. I wouldn't put them into that category. So we've never really had to explore super deep water. We've never had to explore kind of long distance fishing. We don't spod that often.
Well, we
don't use that much bait.
Fish those lakes, but we've opted for the margin choice.
100%, yeah. And I think that's partly because kind of you can be more accurate. You can bait properly. And yeah, like this was very much like, kind of, yes, we're never going to neglect the margins. The wise man once said to us, if you were in this swim, where would you fish? Over there, you cast to the other bank. And what's that on that side of the margin?
Shout out if you know who you are.
You know who you are. I'm sure you'll know who you are. So yeah, like we'll always kind of do that, but just our style of fishing up until this point is we've only really fished long distance and a handful of times. So it's kind of it was a new thing for us to try and keep that confidence going.
But the second we started to get the tactics, what felt quite dialed in, it started to work. I had a flurry of 3 really quickly, starting with 21 pounds and then a 14.5 and then a 15, I think. And that for me then was right. The zig's working. That was confidence. Like the first one, it was like almost a bit surreal. Like, oh, it's actually working. Okay, amazing. Second one, okay. And then the thing with zigs is if you've got a shoal of fish and it's about getting that zig back out into that shoal of fish as quickly as possible. So I did that 2 times over. And that technique is effectively what continued to get us bites through the rest of the session. But when it started working, it was like, oh, here we go.
When you were on the fish, they were there and they continued to take it. Yeah, it was pretty mad, like to think about how quickly those rods were going after you put them straight back out again. You'd net one, put it back out, 10 minutes later it'd go again. It was pretty surreal.
Yeah, and something else to just sort of shout out quickly is we had waders on in these swims. There were big old sort of weed beds that went really quite close in to quite far out. So it was a case of you, in order to give yourself the best chance of catching the fish, you need to get in the water. Yeah. So take some waders. Yeah,
there was, I can't remember whether it was, we were talking to Chris next to us, but then also I watched another video recently on Hodgetts. The water level actually comes really high in the winter, like borderline into the swim.
Well, that's why they recommend waders, because it can flood.
Yeah, and I think when we went, the water level was really low to the extent where you could see the weed beds in front of you.
You could smell it as well. You could smell the water level was low because it wasn't a pleasant smell.
No. But yeah, like there was a video that I watched where the water level was literally like this above like the timber of where the wood was. So it was like close to starting to flood the swims. So yeah, you've got to have waders, especially when the water level's low, because it's just, I mean, you ain't landing a fish. There's too much weed. Like it's like, what was it, like 3 meters?
Yeah, if not
out from the swim, and it was just thick, dense Canadian pondweed. Like as soon as it goes under that.
So that would be a tip. Take some waders. Get in, because you're less likely, because the fish were diving in front of the weed beds as well, so it was good to try and get ahead of that and kind of get them netted. But apart from that, zigs were working. I had 3 on the first day. Next day rolled around, I had 1 off the bottom, which was good because it gave me the confidence that I'd learned from the fact that these rods are likely to go from those spots. Allowed me to leave it out there, and it went. And then from that one, that's when it started to kind of go for both of us, didn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, all the way through that, I was a big sad boy.
Yeah, you were. Well, I'd had 4 by that point, and we were pushing 3 days into the session at this point.
I caught nothing. And you caught nothing yet.
Diddly squat.
Honestly, it was the worst feeling. Like, being in that situation where you've travelled so far.
And paid 150 odd quid as well, right?
Yeah. You sat there for 3 days, you're trying.
Which does happen
And
often.
you'll do it. Oh, yeah, of course. And, we've said many times. What's the Liam Hall 2024 quote?
Look, it would be called catching.
Exactly.
It's fishing. Though.
It's fishing.
It's not fishing. It's catching.
Exactly.
No. It would be called. It's not called catching. It's called fishing.
Yeah, that's correct. So, is what it is. But yeah, that I think after I was probably at my lowest when you caught 3 because it was so quick, and I was like,
all this excitement that's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh great. Like, and obviously I was still gassed because I was getting involved, I was helping, I was doing filming, and kind of it's good fun. But afterwards, you sit back down and you're like,
I want that.
Yeah.
I want that to be me.
Yeah. And then that evening, I lost one at 4 a.m.
There'll be plenty of opportunities though where you're catching and I'll be there thinking, I want that to be me. I'm sure that will happen as well.
Yeah, look, it's not go up against you, it's a go up against
No, but I'm saying it just goes around.
Damn car.
It's how you deal with that because you got to stay in it, stay motivated.
Oh yeah, I did.
Exactly. Don't give up.
Oh, just only a couple of tears. It's fine.
Just a few sad tears.
Just a few little sad tears. So yeah, I lost one at 4 a.m. that night. You then caught one off the bottom. And at that point, I was like, "It's okay, you have to come to it. I'm not going to catch anything."
I'm going to blank.
Fine. I'm blanking. It's fine. And
giving into it.
Yeah, and then I left everything doing what I was doing. I was still like committed to what we were doing. And then like that afternoon, it just happened. I caught one, and then straight after that caught another. Then you had one.
No, you had one. Then I had one.
Oh
then
yeah.
You had one.
Then we had one. Yeah. Then we had a double.
A double take.
And we were both in the water at one point filming.
Yeah, that was very exciting.
Which was love. Not filming. We were both in the water at one point.
Playing the fish.
That was a good experience.
Then I had another one, which then took out a couple of our rods, which was a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then, but by that point though, we were probably quite grateful for the break because in between this, I'd lost 3 and you'd lost 3, so we were having runs as well.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, well, I mean that was it was carnage.
It was a lot.
I just remember I don't think that afternoon we stopped at all to sit and just chill for a bit or anything. It was just one thing after.
Well, the trouble is you catch the fish, you get it in the net, then yours went.
Yeah.
Then you go through the whole same process because we were trying to film as well. You get the camera out, you got to film. You do the little talk to camera about what's happening.
Yeah. Then
you've got to get up. You want to try and get your rod out as quick as you can. So then you've got to re-wrap up 14.5 wraps. You've got to try and get it out, but we're using adjustable zigs. So then that might tangle. So then you've got to reel it back in again.
Yeah.
Re-wrap it 14.5 wraps. Repeat that process. And then it goes again. And it just becomes this never-ending cycle of trying to get rods onto spots as fast as possible, but we were working against the wind.
Yep.
We were working against an adjustable rig that was trying its best to tangle, and that was difficult.
Yeah, and then we were obviously taking a couple of casts sometimes because we just didn't have confidence it wasn't tangled before it came out, or we couldn't see the float in the distance, and it was an ordeal. But also the other thing that's probably worth touching on is the reason why we put so much emphasis on getting the rods out quicker is because you can't spod over those zigs.
Yeah, you can't.
So if it goes, you have to make the most of the fact that the fish are in the area because you can't put more bait over the top to keep them there. So if a shoal's passing through and you've got a zig there, you catch one, net it, get it straight back out. Don't wait, just do it because that's how you're going to increase your chances of catching because you can't spot.
Yeah, and there was a point where we were almost double netting fish because of that reason. Just trying to get them out as quickly as possible. Then once they're out, then deal with the fish, and then obviously get the photos and things like that as well.
Yeah, so it was an exciting afternoon but we went into the evening
ready for a relax until I fell asleep, and then I was woken up again at 1:30 with another one on the zig. It was a nighttime zig fish, which was exciting.
Yeah,
I didn't expect that. I very much associate them as a daytime
tactic.
Yeah, let alone definitely not catching one during the night. So that was fun.
Yeah.
And then it was quiet from that point onwards. The next day rolled around, and it slowed down a bit, didn't it? To be fair, which was probably actually quite good because we had been slacking on doing some filming, and it gave us some time to just start getting some filming in the bank as well. So
I mean, we spent kind of a lot of those days just trying to focus in on the fishing and making sure we could actually do it and get everything right and work it out and that kind of stuff. That last day was we'll take it easy today. We'll just have a bit of a chilled one. We got the rest of the filming sorted and then
got set up and packed and then went home, didn't we?
Yeah.
Which was good. And it was a nice place. I think overall, definitely please. They leave you alone there for the most part, which is quite nice. We got visited a couple of times by people on bikes, just sort of checking in how long we were going to be there for. So it is a nice sort of feeling. You don't feel super pressured. You do get a fair few people walking behind your swim, sort of asking you when you're leaving. That does happen.
Yeah.
Especially on those busier weeks. That's definitely something that happens.
Yeah.
But overall, we've got another session which we're going to look to get booked in October to get back. And really excited for it.
Yeah, I think it'll be good. Overall, super impressed by it. I think, kind of all the stories we've been telling Callum, Liam's brother, I think he's, equally excited now to go and give it a go.
Trouble is, though, we've got high expectations that set the bar quite high. So now we've got to try and surpass that, or just be prepared to be disappointed.
Yeah, and equally, we're obviously going into autumn, winter
Hard
now.
time to fish.
It's going to start getting harder, so we've got to keep our expectations on a, keep a little
like one of our first tips. No expectations.
Exactly.
You'll be fine.
We're keeping a lid on ours.
But I think for the most part, I don't think we put a video out on Norton Disney. So if you want to see how that went and what that looks like, check that out on our YouTube channel where this is, or if you're listening on Spotify, check it out on our YouTube channel, the fishing channel. But I think that pretty much covers everything relatively top level with a bit of tips and things as well.
Yep. So now we have one question that we need to talk about. And one of them that stood out was from a guy called Nick King, basically with a bit of advice, and was basically recommended getting a chest-mounted GoPro and also filming the battles. Now, that comment was in relation to another session video, not the Norton Disney one, because obviously when we're together, you have your own personal camera operator, and so do I.
So do you.
So that works quite well. But yeah, when we're on our own fishing, it's quite difficult. And if those of you that have ever fished and vlogged, filmed at the same time, you'll fully appreciate when your rod goes, I'm going to the camera first to click record is the least of your worries. You're like, I'm straight there.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one.
Which is why I think the GoPro chest mount option is a good option. But then you've got to walk around with a chest mount.
You've got to wear it all the time.
All the time. So there's a bit of a balance. But it is a really good point, though.
I like that option in the style of fishing when you're like, say, walking up and down rivers, and it's a very mobile way of fishing. Because you're not going to care if you're wearing one. You've probably got a backpack on anyway. But
here's a solution.
Go on.
So my solution is, in sort of a Clark Kent inspired reveal, you wear a zip up hoodie, and then the second a fish goes, zip, and you reveal a GoPro under your zipped up hoodie, and then you're ready. So not everyone knows you're always. There might be like a weird lump.
Always ready to go.
But you're always ready to go. And that way, you don't feel embarrassed about having a camera on you all times and one zip away from...
Oh, see, my problem is not necessarily feeling embarrassed about having a camera. It's more being comfortable.
Yeah.
It means I'm wearing it all the time.
Or just wear it on your head, like Francois Bourgeois.
The train guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a good point, though. And I think watch this space, because we were waiting for the GoPro and the new Osmo Action 5 to come out, so we don't get last year's model and can get a newer one.
I mean, we've been toying with one for the last couple of months.
But it's a good point, though, and it makes us think about, please do comment about what you'd like to see, because ultimately we make these videos for us, but also so hopefully someone else can enjoy them and watch them like we do as well. And if there's things that we can do to make them more enjoyable, or things that you'd like to see, like, please do let us know, because as long as it's reasonable, we will...
even throw the reasonable ones at us. Just come at us. Like
Mankini. If enough people say, do it.
How many likes?
10,000 likes.
What's going on with you? What are you talking about?
Enough?
Am I going to regret that?
I think in the future, maybe. A camo Mankini.
Can we put an end date on
it? A camo Kini. An end date?
Yeah, because
2050.
if this video just sits up there for the next 5 years and over time gets 10,000 likes, I don't want to be held to this 5 years' time.
Camo Kini.
Camo Kini. That's new.
Deal, you've heard it here first.
Okay. I think you're right. Like, throw some recommendations at us. Like, if it's things you want to see in the videos we're doing, or even you got your own video ideas, then throw them at us as well. Stuff you want to see us do, shout it out. We're all ears. So I think that
wraps us up
nicely concludes things.
10,000 likes. If you've got 10,000 mates, or just over time, get mankini. That's
Camokini.
Camokini. But right, well, thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing,
All that good stuff.
all that good stuff. And we'll catch you later.
Catch you on the next one.